alarm. You can't even hear it, can you? Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I've got a lot of fun DIY crafts coming your way. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Today we'll be working on some rustic farmhouse wood signs, so let's get started with project number 1. For this project, I'm using some wood I got at a local hardware store. I had it cut down. I'm going to make like a long, narrow sign here, and it is about 8.5 inches tall and in about 28 inches long. Now you can make whatever size you want, of course. And then I got some of this wood, 7/16 by 5 16/18 or whatever the heck that said, from hardware store. You can get whatever trim board you want. And I had my husband cut it down, of course, to fit to make my framing around my board. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and just mark where my trim is going to lay so that I can go ahead and tape this off. Of course, as I usually do when I make wood signs, I like to use wood glue, and my husband always says, raw wood to raw wood, you're going to get the best, adhesion, except I can hear him in my brain right now. So that's what we're doing, and taping it off, of course, so I know not where to paint. I'm going to be using Dixie Belle chalk paint in the color Drop Cloth and Debbie's Design Diary Little Black Dress, both chalk paints. I'll use the Drop Cloth in the center of this. I'll do 2 coats. I'll just show painting a little bit of it. I always don't like to show a lot of painting because you guys know how to paint, but I want to show you that I did it right. No one else did it. It was me. And then we're going to go ahead and start painting the framing. And then once I get a little bit painted, I realize I need to mark on my long boards where the ends here are going to lay. So I'm marking the long boards right at each end so I know, like I said, where these short boards are going to contact. That way I don't paint here as well. Again, we all can hear it, right? Raw wood to raw wood gets the best adhesion with wood glue. And then I'll just continue on painting the rest of the boards. I do 2 coats in the black as well. I know even though I'm going to distress everything, I just like the look of how 2 coats of paint looks, the thickness of it, so to speak, I guess, if that's easy understandable. And I would distress that all off camera, all the pieces. So I've got this little heart from craftingwithkimber.com. They come in a set of 4. I'll have the link down below in my description box. I love these hearts. I've been using them, as you guys know, for a while now, and especially I love them on signs because they just add a little something something. And I traced it onto some double-sided scrapbook paper, and I'm coming in about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm redrawing that pattern. And then that's what I'm going to cut out. So when we place it on our heart, you'll see that little bit of wood perimeter. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint the heart black so it matches the framing and brings the framing color inside. And I'm going to distress this by hand here, just a tiny bit. And then I'm distressing around the edges of my paper heart with the edges of my scissors. And I've already sewn off camera with my sewing machine around the heart as well. It's really subtle. Using Beacon Fabri-Tac glue here, I'll show you what it looks like. There we go. Now here's what everything looks like, all distressed, all my wood trim pieces and the center of my sign, of course. Just a little bit with my electric sander. We'll go ahead and pull off all the tape around the edges here because we always like to see that, nice sharp, paint line reveal, right? Just soothing to the soul. Once that's done, let's move into the quote portion of this. Of course, I will have a link to my free printable on my blog in my description box for a PDF if you want to use carbon paper and trace it, or a PNG, although it might be easier for you to just type it out quickly. I'll have the fonts listed down below for you. And what I am doing here is, this is just a heart border. I did a search for it a couple years ago. I searched heart borders and found this and uploaded it into my Cricut program. And I'm cutting the little heart portion out so that we can add that little heart there in the center just to give it a little something something, okay? So again, you'll have the free PDF and a PNG. If you don't want to type it out and you want to clean out the background, the insides of the letters, you go. So we get this on here. And I know you all have seen versions of this little quote. I changed it up a little bit, omitted a few words so that I could make it bigger. Once I get the font bigger on my design, once I get this on there, I'm just taking a little bit of that little black just chalk paint mixed with water and a fan brush and just adding just real slight, subtle little splatters just to give it a little bit of a rustic, a little bit more of a rustic, texture to it. And I'll splatter the heart as well. And then once that's all dry, I'm going to use this wood glue here, and we're just going to start putting our border on. The sign is really easy. If you're not into or don't have the, capability of cutting stuff to make a sign, thrift stores, Goodwill stores, they have all sorts of framed art already. You just take it apart and you have your frame ready to go. You can use cardboard on the bottom or foam board, however you want to do it, something like that. And, make a sign. It'll be beautiful. You can use the backing that already comes in framed art as your piece on the back and just paint it. However you can do it. Don't be afraid. Get in there and do it, or just print the quote off and put it in a pretty frame and you're done. And obviously the last route to get this look is usually any hardware store will cut the wood for you, and then all you have to do is assemble. So once my frame is on, I clamped it all off camera, it's ready to go. Now I'm going to put the heart on. That makes this project complete, but we'll look at the finishing touches at the end of our next project. That said, let's move on to project number 2. Now for this farmhouse sign, I do have another piece cut. It's a very big piece. The sign is big. I've had this idea in my mind I've been wanting to do for a while. I first saw it on Pinterest like a couple of years ago. This measures about 15 or a little bit over 15 inches tall and about 26.5 inches wide. And for part of the framing, I'm going to use these two signs from Dollar Tree, if I can say that correct, because I like how thick they are. And the reason I want them that thick is because I want to take this and use it as part of the framing. Now, I went to a thrift store and I saw that and I was like, oh, I'll get it cut in half. And then I noticed it was like already cut in half. I didn't have to have my husband cut it in half, and it was $5 for this. So you can cut a big old spindle in half if you want, or just do regular framing. But see how thick this is? The reason I'm using the Dollar Tree signs, because it's almost a thickness in that. Now, I could leave it like that with that little bit of spindle popping up, but instead, I went ahead and shortened this about 2 inches in length and about 1 inch in height. And now I can turn the sign the other direction and it gets almost the whole entire spindle. Either way would look acceptable, okay? So I saw this on Pinterest and I've been wanting to create it for a few years. And when I saw this spindle and then realized it was already cut in half, a job done for me. Of course, if you don't have the use of power tools to do this, just do regular framing like we did on our other sign, because the quote is just pretty enough. So first thing I'm doing is just, the spindle's been sitting there a while. There was cobwebs on the inside of it and everything. I'm just cleaning it all off with some of these little cleaning wipes from Dollar Tree. And I'm laying everything into position here, and I'm just going to go around and trace around these spindles and stuff so I know where later to, glue to, basically, to get it, although it's not hard because it's kind of edge to edge. But I originally was going to paint everything separately, and then I decided, well, that's dumb, I'll just paint it all at one time. So you don't have to, or you can trace where they go, but I am tracing it just so I remember too, because I'm turning one spindle one direction and one spindle another direction, and so it just kind of keeps it clear in my head where I'm going to put it in a minute. So on these two signs, I've marked where the spindles are going to touch them. And I'm going to use this Waverly Wax full strength. You guys know I usually don't do that, but I'm going to use it full strength because it is as dark as the dark brown on the spindles. And I want these to be as dark brown on as the spindles at first, because then once we paint over everything, I'm only really going to sand the framing area. That's all that I want to have distressed look, because if I do that in the middle of the sign too, like I usually do as well, I think it's going to be too much distressing. And before I started, I went ahead and just sanded that design that was on the front of these little signs. It was just painted on, so it was easy to get off. So here you can see how everything is sanded, looks to be the same length or the same shade. And now I'm going to come in with some wood glue and then get all my pieces down around the border. So again, if you don't find a big spindle or you don't have a way to cut them in half, just do regular framing and make a beautiful sign like we did on the first project. It will still be as cool. I just love how this turned out. It was just different enough to catch my attention. So using our wood glue, look, my drawn image I didn't really have to draw. I drew it. Now I know exactly where it goes. We'll get the other spindle on here. Get this into position. Be nice and easy. And again, I turned one spindle one way and one spindle the other way. And then I'll go ahead and start, of course, gluing down my ends with these thick Dollar Tree signs. And then right in those little circles, because that's where it's going to contact the end of my spindles. Perfect. And then get them right into position. I couldn't clamp this because the way it was. So I just kind of, set some heavy stuff down on top and around on the sides to kind of clamp this together using the wood glue. But it's perfectly fine. And if it had not clamped together well enough, I would just put some little finishing nails on the back too, but I didn't have to. Now here's Debbie's Design Diary, DIY White Swan at chalk paint. I'm just going to completely paint the whole sign over everything. 2 coats. Actually, I think I did 3 coats. 2 coats in the center and 3 coats around the outer perimeter on those spindles because they are really, really dark. I know it just looks so, beautiful that first coat, right? But it's like funny because I'm sitting there painting the center. I couldn't wait to get to the spindles. I don't know why, but it's just like I just wanted to paint those spindles. So anyway, just show a little bit of painting, of course. But yeah, I definitely had to go like 3 coats on this. And plus, I said before, I really like the thickness of the layers of paint sometimes. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I just like it. Anyways, just do a little bit more painting here, and then I'll do the rest off camera. Of course, we'll show you how it looks, but this is what really took the most time with this whole project, was getting everything painted and, the 2 or 3 coats that you might want to put on there. But yeah, this is what took time. So here it is, all completely finished. Just looks beautiful. Almost hard to mess it up, right? But I did not mess it up, but sand it up. Not really sand it up. Gonna wet distress on this because I wanted the distressing to not look sanded and scraped like with sandpaper. I wanted it to look more melted and erased. We talked about this in my last video. Of course, there'll be a link to it if you missed it. But by using water, and it takes a little bit more work. This Debbie's Design Diary is really easy to use, but it takes a little more work with the more coats of paint you use. Had I only used like 2 coats, would have came off a little easier, but it just takes a little bit more scrubbing with 3 coats of paint. But I either wet my towel or I'll wet the spindle or whatever, and I just, keep rubbing till some of that shines through, and it just kind of does a little bit of erasing. So I do it on the spindles and the end pieces, and here's what it looks like. Again, I thought if I did it through the whole thing, it would be too much. So just around the framing area. And so for this one, this is the quote I created. I created it kind of a horizontal and a vertical for you. So to give you a couple of options, you see those popping up on the screen. Again, PDFs, PNGs, and I'll have the fonts listed down below if you want to do it yourself. This is something I wrote in a devotional. I think it was one of my last 1 or 2 videos I shared with you at the end, my final thought. This is one of the lines from that. So this is my line that I wrote. Again, the link will be below in my description box to the free printable for you. So here it is. I've got everything on here. Of course, I'm just going to use my brayer and get it all rubbed down so it sticks all nice and wonderful. The thing about chalk paint, when you're putting a vinyl coat on here, I kind of wanted to share with you. Before you put the coat on, you want to make sure that you wipe all the dust and everything off, because sometimes the letters just don't want to stick on that chalk paint. So you want to just be really diligent, and I usually would take a wet paper towel, wipe it all down, wipe all the dust off, and just make sure it's fully dry before I go to put the coat on. I only had a couple letters at the very beginning not want to kind of stay down, and I just kind of had to hold them down myself, and now they're down fully wonderful. But anyway, just wanted to give you that little, tip. Now I decided, of course, I want to add a little bit of splatters to this as well. So I'm just using some tape to kind of paint around the edges. I don't know why I did that, because in the end I go ahead and add just real slight splattering on, the framing as well. But just again, that black chalk paint mixed with water, fan brush, adding a little bit of splatters, and that makes this project complete. So I hope you like both of these projects today. I know I normally do 3. I'm down to 2 today, but as I mentioned in my last video, I'm heading into my spring craft show. So Had to go one less project to make sure I squeeze this video in for you. I love how this farmhouse sign turned out. I think it just looks great. I am keeping this one because it's going in my kitchen above the door. I love it. It's perfect. I hope you like it too. I hope you like the second one I made using spindles as the framing. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know which sign was your favorite. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you walked in here today and you're just checking things out and you're digging what you saw, make sure before you click off, you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another video from me. Before I go, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. The battle you are facing won't be won with thoughts of defeat. The battle is won because God chose you and uses you and guides you in all the gifts He has given you to face your days. He gives you what you need to walk successfully day by day to face your destiny. Don't let the enemy take away your confidence. Don't let the enemy fill your thoughts with insecurity. Don't let the enemy allow you to measure the height of that mountain. God is bigger than that mountain. He is more relentless, more powerful. He has no fear, and He will take you to soaring heights because with God, you can do anything. So be relentless in all that God has for you. Our tendency is to allow our thoughts of what we are facing make those fears bigger and bolder. That's what allows the enemy in. But as we all know, God says, do not fear. I want you to meditate on how big your God is and walk boldly in His name. You are strong, you are courageous, you are God's child. Remember, He chose you. Stand up in that. He has great plans for you. Plans to give you a hope and a future, and dare I say, plans to give you a destiny. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.